Hello and welcome to Stampscaping 101. This is the first video that I've done in a while. I've been doing a lot of, well, not a lot, but some public demonstrations of late. A lot in comparison to the last few years, but anyways, I'm just getting back into some videos here. I wanted to play around with some different media that I've purchased recently in the form of a glow paint and a gigantic set of gel pens. But the gel pens have a range of hue in any, a range of values, I should say, in every given hue. So I have all these different choices of green values and green tones and temperatures. There's cool greens and warm greens and whatnot. But these types of things like this really kind of extend the possibilities of doing whatever you want in a scene in terms of adding light touches over dark backgrounds, okay? And what I wanted to do was, I've done these scenes before where I've kind of created these little kind of Firefly type of looks in a scene, and I wanted to do it in this one right now here, being that I have variations of pale green, warm green colors, okay? Adding them in here, putting a little dot of glow-in-the-dark paint over the top of them just with a brush, okay? And I wanted to see if it kind of created a little bit of a glow. I'll see if I can take a photograph of this just with my camera. In the video it's kind of hunting around because there's not enough light when I turn off all the lights in here, but I think if I hold this up to the light and take a photograph of it, if I can focus in, we'll see if these little fireflies in here are really glowing or not. But anyways, just a real fun type of experiment here. I did find one thing that was surprising and different with these gel pens. These gel pens, the comment by all of us who bought early incarnations of gel pens, even in the first like 2 or 3 years of them, all right? I'm not talking about this brand, but just gel pens in general. The problem was that they clogged or they just didn't flow. But these ones, from what I'm finding so far, flow beautifully, okay? But what I found was that adding a little dot down here, okay, with other brands of gel pens like a Uniball or something like that, if I add a little bit of pigment ink over the top of it and create this little bit of a glow, didn't do anything to that dot for the most part. But on these ones, it kind of putting a little bit of pigment ink over the top of them, in a very dry brush effect, it almost started removing the gel. So I think that's what's happening with these gel pens. I'm guessing all of the gel pens in this type of set, as I think the ink is softer, so it's prone to going back into solution. If you put a dot down there and you put something over the top of it, it might be so kind of soft that it removes. That being said, you just have to use a little bit of softer touch in your application of pigment ink if you're going to do something like that. Or what you do is you add some of this down here and then you go back in and add the dot over it afterwards. Or you can kind of put a little bit of a dot down, and if you want that dot to kind of glow or have a glowing look to it with some pigment ink, you can spray fix it as well and then go back over that dot and just tap over it, because you're not really tapping directly on the dot, you're tapping over a sealed scene. Alright, so anyways, just a fun little scene right here, kind of an experiment. The foundation that I stamped it on, as far as the composition goes, it's kind of more, it's very, very secondary to the effects that I was kind of going after with this, these little glowing little lights in here. So just fun stuff. I'm looking at it right now, trying to decide if I want to add in anything more in here. So I'm not sure, but if I do, I'll put that into the Flickr version of this scene. But I think as far as this video goes, I'm happy with where it stands right now. I can't wait to take this, you know, into a really dark room right now and see if those lights are really glowing with the use of this Art and Glow glow-in-the-dark paint. So anyways, if you choose to watch the video, I hope you enjoy it. As always, if you have any questions, drop us a note in the comments section. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of an experiment here with some of my new gel pens and this glow-in-the-dark Art and Glow neutral sky blue glow paint. I guess in this case, for the scene that I'm doing, maybe a different color would be good. I've seen these paints come in different colors. I didn't realize they had, you know, kind of a range of different hue to choose from, but I don't know, just to experiment around with, I went with the blue one, the sky blue. I think there was a deeper blue maybe, but let's play around with this and see what we can come up with. Okay, now stars would be a really great kind of experiment, but I was watching something on the internet on bioluminescence and fireflies, and I thought I would like to try something with that. Okay, I'm just going to do this as it's more of an experiment than a you know, a highly resolved finished scene, so as far as the composition goes. So I'm just going to keep this simple. I'm going to go with this Waterside Bluff left and the Oak row, and then just maybe a little simple foreground here, cattails maybe. And I'm going to do this, and I want it to be a really diffused, maybe Twilight type of scene, you know, where there's just barely any light, so that a lot of the tension will be brought to the, you know, whatever colors I end up using for the, for those bioluminescent fireflies. I really can't wait to use all of these different pens here. I've never had kind of that type of selection of pens that you can go back into a scene and do light into dark. I've always had, you know, white gel pen, and you know, I've been using the Sharpie paint pens a lot, you know, because there's colors. I have 5 colors there, but now with the gel pen set, if any of you are curious to know what I'm talking about, I did a video, an unboxing of this gigantic set of gel pens that I bought, 180 different colors. So I don't know if they're not all different hue, but you know, some of them are. There's different incarnations of pens. There's glitter pens and metallic pens, pastels. But I don't know, they're looking really good, and upon first kind of inspection, they all work just fine. You know, that was the kind of one of the things with gel pens back in the day when they first started coming out. I think there were some manufacturers just kind of in a hurry to get, you know, their product on the market, and I don't know, they just didn't test these pens out, or those pens out, and a lot of them just didn't work, you know, brand new when people bought them, so that was really discouraging. Okay, this is a Waterside Bluff. I placed it there, and if I want to, I can place it again up here, you know, to kind of carry that that bank up a little bit farther, like so. Now I'm going to fill in that area. By the way, if I sound a little congested, I am. Seems like I have these allergies for some reason, so my nose is a little bit clogged. But I didn't want to wait any longer to do a video because I really wanted to experiment with my new media and supplies, and I figured I might as well put it into a video format. Alright, I just went to a convention a few weeks ago. It's been 2 weeks, it seems like longer, but it seems like my pads are a little bit dry. I'll try to get this composition stamped out without having to re-ink. It's one thing about doing those types of things. It takes me a while to get all my supplies kind of back into order here, because I don't have a separate like traveling set of media for demos now like I used to, so I take the stuff off of my table here, and if I were to zoom out of this video right now, you'd see, you know, with this, my table area, it looks kind of cluttered, but I've come to realize that kind of it's an organized clutter in some ways. Alright, this black pad's running out a little bit, stamped out a little bit more gray, but that's not going to be a problem because I want a little bit of diffusion in terms of the kind of atmosphere I'm going after. Because in this scene, again, it's not really going to be about so much of the imagery. I mean, it's setting the foundation for the scene, but you know, the hovering little fireflies on the shoreline here are really going to be the star of the scene. So, kind of in the nature of how I first designed nature designs, they were, you know, it's going to be meant for more of a setting, you know, where the focus of attention is going to be brought onto something else in the scene. Originally, I was thinking of imagery when I came up with the first set of designs, but it also can be just little objects. In this case, it'll be like little colored green dots in here. So, and I'll have those kind of roughly around in here. So that being said, when I approach the coloring of this scene, I want it to be fairly dark, because if I want something like this to stand out, if I were to put these little, you know, green little dots on here right now, we'd barely see it, okay? This color is right here. Actually, this will be a good one. I have so many colors to go with now. It's really amazing having a range of hue by which to choose from, or a range of values, I guess. See, I mean, I have a range of like a light green. I mean, look at this pale green right here. And this one is really light. I don't know, there must be, I don't know, maybe 10 values of any given hue in here, going from light to dark. So, I mean, before I was just, you know, happy to have one color of something, so having this range, it's really kind of I don't know, baffling to me in terms of a usage point of view. So, that being said, I think it's going to take me a while to figure out kind of, or even to touch on this tall grass. I'm just doing a little bit of foreground here. I think it's really going to take me a while to kind of figure out a real kind of effective application and usage of these pens and what can be done with them. So a lot of experimentation to come, and we'll see what happens. Okay, cattails in the foreground, A lot of times what I like to do from a compositional standpoint is to kind of put things a little bit taller on the you know, the bottom left and right corner, and then I'll kind of stamp things out, be it a tree or whatever, at a different angle. Maybe not a tree, I'll do it, you know, but I'll do it kind of lower. But in this case, with something like this, Cattails, I'll just change the angle, and I'll go a little bit lower so that kind of there's a taller kind of a framework of these foreground images on the left and right hand side. And then I'll go a little bit lower like that, and then I'll leave a space right here. Most of the times I won't block it off completely. I mean, you certainly could, but I just feel that, you know, for most of my scenes, I like to have kind of an entry point for the viewer to visually enter a scene through. So I'll leave a little bit of corridor there, so most of the times I won't kind of block it off. You could block it off, though, you know. Let's say you have some kind of wildlife back here, and we do have something like these cattails going across, you know, the entire front. Maybe that would kind of give us the feeling that we're kind of, you know, being really quiet and stealthy, trying to view, you know, whatever's in the background there. So you can do something like that for that type of purpose. Okay, so that's the foundation right there. Just a real easy composition. What were there? 4 stamps. The Oak Rose stamped twice. The Waterside Bluff left stamped twice. Okay. 3 impressions with the tall grass, and I don't know, several impressions with the cattails, maybe 5 or 6 at different heights and different angles. Okay, now let's give this scene kind of just a real basic grayscale toning application, tonal application. I'm not going to go for what I usually do, which is kind of a stronger sense of kind of a light source, okay? Because it is going to be kind of a dusk, foggy, kind of period of the day in this particular location, but I probably do want a little bit of variation, but I think I will remove just about all of my white of the paper. Okay. Oh, by the way, this is London Fog Gray. Okay. The Memento inks are really great for your first colors. They're nice and thick in terms of the viscosity of the ink. Okay, so they spread really nicely on glossy paper. I am getting a slight blurring of some of the imagery because I didn't let it dry long enough, but that's not really going to be a, you know, a bad thing in this scene. I want there to be diffusion in here. I don't want things to be so crisp, okay? Because of that light and the mood, I want it to be kind of a foggy, kind of moisture-filled scene. So what I mean by that is, you know, there's water in here, but I want this to have a feeling of there being, you know, a lot of suspended moisture in the air in the terms of fog, or just, you know, just kind of a wet, slightly more damp twilight or night, whatever. Okay, now see, I think I will keep a little bit of areas of, you know, where it's a little bit lighter in there, like right in there. I mean, it's going to be really subtle. but just for variation's sake. Okay, that's good on the London fog. Just to kind of mix things up a little bit, I'll add a Marvy gray. It's practically the same. I don't really see very much difference at all. So you can mix and match. If you have a couple colors that are similar, you know, you can use both or you can use one or the other. It doesn't really matter. For me, I am using both. I figured I have them. You know, the more layers that you add down, potentially, you know, the scene can be a little bit more, you can get a little richer in terms of the color scheme, or value scheme in this case, right now, because I haven't added really any color. These two grays are, they're kind of a neutral, neutral grays. In other words, no kind of cool tone or warmth to it, which is good. In ink pads, in the crafting industry at least, as far as I know, there's not a lot of gray tones out there, so usually they're kind of the slower selling colors out there, even though they're very useful. But people are attracted to colors, so a lot of times within a given range of hue within a given line of inks, there's usually like one gray. You know, there might be 3 or 4 greens and 3 or 4 blues and red, pink, you know, whatever. And there's usually like one gray. Maybe that's changed these days, I don't know. Okay, so that's kind of a neutral gray. You can see a little bit of a variation in here. It's subtle, right? It's because I haven't left that as white. It's just kind of more of a light gray because I've only tapped into these areas right here with a very dry brush. But over here and on the perimeter, I've used, you know, a good saturation of ink. So not a different hue in here, just a different quantity of it used in this area. Okay, just to create a little bit of variation, and you can see it. It kind of, you know, it reads as lighting in there, albeit a very subtle lighting. Okay, so let's add in some blue tones. Okay, and now we're introducing temperature. When you add blue to this, it becomes a cool gray. It might end up being more kind of a bluish background in the end. I mean, that's kind of what I'm going for, but you can kind of see the process of how it changes over time this way. I mean, you can go into this gray foundation here with whatever colors you want. You can even do it with like a browns and distress ink, kind of aged browns and sepias and walnut, you know, stain or something like that, and that would be pretty neat in here as well. Right over the foundation of gray. And by the way, I'm finding that this gray, kind of this method of working in the grayscale and then adding color, to be really kind of nice. It gives it a different look, but you can also just go on straight with the colors too. They would tend to look more kind of bright, probably, not having that kind of diffusion of gray as a foundation. So it would look kind of different, but I don't know, I like both looks. Alright, this is a light blue. It'd be real similar to, say, Bahama blue from Memento. I'm just going to go with the Marvy, I think, here. Marvy's a little bit more thin in terms of the viscosity of the ink, so it applies a little bit faster. You know, if I'm going with I like going with a thick ink in the beginning, but Sometimes when it gets to the fourth or fifth color or something like that, if you're working with a really thick ink again, like just about everything but Marvy, you know, you might start applying it and it's thick, so you're applying thick into thick and it doesn't penetrate the paper as fast. So it takes a little bit, you know, more time to build up your tones and your value range that way than in going with a thinner color over the thick ones, okay? But you can just use thick colors. Maybe heat set it a little bit or something of that sort. And then you start applying colors and they'll stick. Because if you're working multiple layers of thick inks onto a piece of paper, what it does is it starts building up on the surface a little bit. It's not a bad thing because that surface buildup also allows those inks to really apply in a nice smooth manner, which is what you want, but you also want it to apply though, you know, to transfer. But that being said, you can, like I said, you can just kind of dry it a little bit, or if you have a heat gun, just hit it a little bit, you know, a few seconds even, and just start applying more inks. If that starts to happen to you, if it's, you know, if the inks aren't transferring as you do that. Pretty dreary looking, huh? It's kind of unusual for me to work this way, where I don't have some of the true white of the paper. But in this case, I think this is providing kind of a nice foundation. It's taking us into a direction where those little colored dots will really stand out against a darker background. I've never seen fireflies in person, but I'd sure like to one day. Fireflies, any type of bioluminescence is fun. One time I was out surfing at nighttime, and when you kind of waved your hands around in the water, it kind of bioluminesced. I think it was bioluminescent plankton. And then when you saw the waves crashing, you know, that little, you know, foam buildup, it was really, I don't know what they call it, is it fluorescing or whatever? There was illumination happening right in there, and it was really cool. So, fireflies, I gotta see those one of these days. One of these days I want to get up in to some area where I can see the northern lights, and not just in photographs or in film clips and whatnot. I want to see it live with my own eyes, in person. But one of the good things about the rubber stamping, until you can do that or be in those locations or whatever, or if I want to take a quick kind of a mental trip to some location or to see something, you can kind of just create it. And in that period of time when you're doing that, in some ways, kind of maybe on a subconscious level, you kind of are going into that scene or that location that you're creating, so that's one of those aspects to scenic stamping that's a little bit different than kind of some other forms of stamping. You know, you can kind of go to those locations in your mind or in your subconscious. Okay, see, I'm kind of still retaining some of those little areas of light in there. It's getting darker and darker because I do want that contrast between the little lights and the background. And going back to my composition, like I said, I want this more as a kind of a foundation. You know, there's trees and cattails in here, but those are not, in this case, going to be the stars of the scene. It's going to be the other elements that are in the scene. So perfect example of scenic stamps as backgrounds, you know? Just a foundation. Okay. Alright, that was a blue, and it's just called blue, number 3 blue from Marvy. One of my favorite colors is the number 29. I don't use it as much, but it's a Prussian blue, but it's very, very dark. It's a dark, bright blue, okay? It's not dark and light, it's dark and bright in terms of the intensity of that version of blue. And for some reason the viscosity is a little bit different with this Prussian blue. I don't have no idea on the chemistry of ink chemistry that they use, but for some reason that brightness and lightness, you know, being very dark, it feels a little bit different than most inks that I work with, like any other color in the Marvy line practically. It's just a little bit different. There's a couple colors that, for whatever reason, they feel different. It's a color that also can potentially, if you're stamping something in this color, actually I could have stamped some of those background trees in that Prussian blue, that would have looked good too. But yeah, for some reason, it's different. This one and I think the number 59 Rosemary or Bubblegum Pink, one of those colors, those two inks are a little bit different in terms of feel and application. But I really love that color. I like those blue, almost black colors, because I use them a lot. Alright, so, let's see what we have here. Alright, let's go to black. Back in black. Let me see if I have a... I was looking to see if I had a re-inked black. I put my re-inkers somewhere. I took all my re-inkers with me to the Carson stamp convention. Well, not all of them, but several of the colors that I use the most, including black. I'm starting to wonder at this point in time if that area of lightness down there is a little bit too light. I might not want that. I don't know, maybe I can make it a little bit darker. I'm not going to do it with this one though, this black. I'll go back in, maybe with a lighter blue or something like that. I mean, we saw it before, that area wasn't standing out too much, but when you start taking the area around it and making it much darker, those areas of lightness really stand out because of the contrast. We're creating a much stronger contrast, although it doesn't look too bad. Maybe a little bit of color, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think we will. I think we will do that. I think if I make that area in the water a little bit darker, it will bring more attention to the fireflies, okay? And this black is really blending on the, applying and blending on the paper really nicely. It has a really good feel to it because the paper is fairly wet. It's moist. It's not super damp to the touch, you know. I have, you know, ink on these two fingers because I'm holding it with that. But, you know, if I do that, you know, this page is dry to the touch. I mean, it's a little bit damp, but that's allowing me to really, you know, spread this color down in a nice, graceful, smooth manner. Okay, I always like to go with the darker corners to frame things off. From a compositional standpoint, visually frame it off, not physically. Okay. I don't know, now that area to me looks fine. I think I'll leave it. Okay. There's a lot of diffusion in there. I think that provides a nice setting for our little critters. Alright. Let's see what we have here. Gosh. I have so many colors here. I think these ones are the neon ones. I'm trying to think of why they kind of have these separated here. There's so many colors, and some of them are really close to each other in terms of hue and value. I mean, look at like this one, and like any of these. Let's go with I have all these re-inkers too. I was going to rearrange these in terms of the value and hue. I wanted to get those all kind of organized together, but I think they have them organized by different types as well. So, alright, let's just... Oh, I know, this one's a glitter. These two are glitter ones. Gosh, there's pale green glitter. Alright, I think this may be right here. Now, these do not have a color name or something like that. I'm looking at, and gosh, this set of pens that I bought have refills for every one of these, but boy, I mean, that would be really tough to figure out which one goes with which, I think. I don't know, I'll have to see. Okay, so we have our foundation here, and let's just start adding some of these. I went with a little bit of a darker green. Lighter green would be okay too, but I went with a little bit of a lighter green, I mean a darker green than I thought I would need, because I'm going to put a little bit of a pigment ink over the top of it, the white pigment ink, okay, to create a little bit of fusion and glow. So that's why I went with a little bit of a darker green here, because it'll lighten up a little bit with that ink. I don't know, maybe I'll try both, why not? I have 180 colors here. So let's do that. Let's mix it up a little bit, okay? Maybe some of the fireflies are on the cattails in the foreground. Gosh, these colors are really cool. These two pens right here, I mean, they're not real close, but you know, I can really tell the difference between those dots, so you can see the different tones or the different values. So I really have a lot of choice here when it comes to you know, what we're going after. Just having that oscillation of value in the most subtle of details here, I'll tell you, is not a bad thing, you know. Before I was, you know, I might just be using one color of one value of a green, but alright. So just after a few dots, this pack is already worth it to me, provided this, you know, lasts for a while. I don't want to turn around and find out these pens kind of aren't working, you know, 6 months from now, but I don't know, they're still pretty inexpensive, you know, as far as that goes. Was it $26 for 180 colors? If you have any questions on it, check out that video. It's one of the recent videos. Okay, we have our little dots and little details there. So let's take a little bit of pigment ink. I just have a cotton swab here, and it's a Q-tip brand one, okay? And it's the real cotton, so it, you know, it's soft and it frays. You see how soft that tip is right there? Now, the Colorbox Frost White pigment ink that I'm using, see that? This pad is really dry, so I can probably just go straight into it, but my suggestion for you, because your pad's probably not as dry as mine, dab off your ink a little bit, or a lot, or in fact, when you ink up your cotton swab, just barely tap it in there, and then tap it off a little bit. It does two things. It removes a lot of the ink, and it kind of smashes your tip down and softens it. Do it lightly, you don't have to do it hard. And then when you start applying it here, just do a light dabbing, okay? You don't want to get a big blob of ink on there. It would look like a big blob instead of a kind of a little bit of a glow. Okay. Let me see if I can move my camera down here. Okay, I'm really going to try and keep a keep the working area in the frame of the camera right now. A lot of times I end up doing this and I end up doing it down here and don't realize it until after I shoot the video. I apologize for that. Now, one of the things that I'm finding right here with this type of ink is that when I apply this on top of it, this is different than a lot of the gel pens I've used before. It's kind of putting that gel pen dot back into solution a little bit, meaning it's kind of pulling those little dots off. It's kind of smashing them a little bit, so I'm going to have to work with that a little bit. Okay, in terms of just tapping lighter. So it looks like the gel is of a different chemistry, okay, than say the Uniball Signo pen. Maybe that's why, maybe that's the thing about this gel pen. I bet you the gel is thinner or softer, which probably for these pens makes the pen so it doesn't clog as much as some of those early incarnations of gel pens years ago. Alright, I didn't see any comments as far as the reviews mention anything about clogging and pens not working. These things had like a 4.75% star rating, okay, which is really high for any product. So I bet you that's what happened. They made the gel softer, okay? But anyways, you can see those little glowing little bits of light in there. Okay? Now, doing so, I eradicated some of that little dot in the middle, because you can see on this gel, cotton swab, maybe you can. Let me see if I can get it to focus in here. You can see that green on the tip there. Okay, so it was pulling the green off. Okay, now here's the thing. With that being said, and learning about these pens, one of the things I could do is I could put those dots down, and I could spray it with a spray fixative, okay? And lock those gel pen dots down, and then I could put this over the top of it where I'm really applying it over the top of the spray fix. And that would not pick up that little dot. Okay, now that being said too, if you spray fix your scenes, and I usually do, one of the things that I would do is I would kind of hit it from distance, okay, spray it from distance so that you're not turning the that gel back into solution. Sometimes you spray something and it kind of it melts the certain types of media, alright? So you just hit it from distance so that you put a light layer on it so it doesn't kind of blend everything out, and you don't lose your those crisp little dots in this case, or highlights or whatever, using these pens. So alright, but knowing that now, or seeing that, I'm just speculating as to what happened there. I just went back in and just reintroduced it, so you can see a little dot right amidst those little glowing spheres, diffused spheres of pigment ink, okay? You can see it down here in the foreground, like the little fireflies, lightning bugs, whatever you call them. Sitting on some of the cattails, okay? Now maybe I'll put some of these way in the distance, I'll put like little crisp little dots back there. Normally when I'm doing things like this, it quite often represents, little dots in the sky would represent stars or whatever, but in this case, fireflies. And I'm finding with these gel pens, the little thing here is that, if I do a light little dab, it gives me a smaller dot, which is kind of nice. I like having that in my gel pens. I like to have a little bit of control, so even though the tip might be bigger, if you're writing with it, you can do a little dab and it'll give you a smaller dot. Yeah, these are nice. And this is comfortable in my hand too. It has this kind of ergonomic little grippy shape to the barrel, which is good. So far so good. I'm really happy with these pens. Okay, you can see those little tiny dots in the background there. Okay. I'm using this color right now. No idea what it is, because there's no number or anything to designate it. Which, for I did the math because I was so astounded at the price of these pens. I don't know, it was like a matter of a few cents for each pen, you know, especially if you factor in the refills. Okay, now going with a darker green here just to kind of oscillate it a little bit. Have some of these are a little bit more subtle because it's darker. Okay. Now, doing things like this, adding those little touches like that, for me, is a huge amount of fun. I love doing that type of thing. Adding in those little flourishes or final touches. Alright, now, I don't know if this is going to show up at all in a video. I'll try to take a photograph, like a night shot, but my camera really has a hard time focusing on little super dim little points of glowing light, like dimly glowing light, but I'm going to use some of this sky blue. It would have been better with the, you know, that typical greenish color, glow in the dark thing, you know, colors that so many glow in the dark things come in. But I have this paint here, so I'm going to use it in this scene. And if I like it, I'll have to go get that other, I'll have to order that other color of like a light green. I just got these on, I just got this on Amazon. Okay. Alright. Let's see. This is just a number 2 brush here. And I'll just put a little dab on some of these kind of the larger glowing Firefly dots. I mean, you could put it wherever you want, but that's where I'm going to put mine. And I just think that's, I mean, if this works, it's just a fun little thing. Can you imagine giving a card like this to a kid, or really any, I mean, it doesn't have to be this one, but if you're giving it to a little kid, they might want something more kind of explosive in terms of a visual, you know, where you maybe I'd do like a splatter paint application of glow paint in a sky. And then you tell the, you know, and you write into the card, you know, take me to, or you can give them instructions on how to view their glowing, you know, card, and then take it into a dark closet or something like that when they receive it, or, you know, you hold it down like that. Matter of fact, let's see if I hold it up to the light. I'm just kind of peeking in here. Let me see. I think that's working, but I'll have to see if I can get that to focus in. It's a real, like I said, it's not super glow, and I didn't put a lot of light into it, but let me see right here. This room is not going to be, oh wait, I can't turn off this, the lights. Well, let me see if I can. I don't think this is going to be glowing right now, but we'll test it out. Trying to get this room as dark as possible. Yeah, see, you can kind of see it glowing, so if I turn off the lights even more, I mean, for the camera it would be hunting, but see, I don't know, those kind of stand out a little bit down there. In person it's really dim, but I also didn't charge it up against the light, but I don't know, I can see where it's kind of working a little bit. So that's kind of fun. All right, let's see what we have here. I always like titling these cards like Night Lights or something like that. But here we go. Fun little fireflies in here. As far as the foundational composition, it's just kind of a background, right? You can do that however way you want. But these little stars, not stars, but fireflies, these little subtle things like that are really enjoyable to add. And now, with the addition of this gigantic pack of gel pens, I think I'll have a lot of fun playing around with, I don't know, just a variety of different types of applicable possibilities here. And then this is just touching on the surface here, and I kind of use these pens the way that I've been using the white gel pen and other colors before it, but I really think that we can do a lot of things with coloring objects in a much more kind of bold manner. Like in water, I'm talking about like shimmering waters or something like that. I want to do some scenes with the real shimmering waters where I can use some of these pens that are kind of a glitter pen. The ones that have the kind of the glitter on it, on the barrel, are the glitter pens. So we can really have some, instead of kind of representational shimmering water, which I used to do, I can do that type of thing, but actually add in a physically shimmering effect with these glitter gel pens and the metallic like blues or something like that. Or if it was a sunset scene, we can add in golds and whatnot. But for something like this, where there's subtlety within the greens, I mean, that just is a really nice kind of option for us, you know, instead of going with, okay, what color are fireflies? Well, they're kind of a lime greenish type of glow. Well, now I have, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 different pens in that hue, but in a variety of values here. This one's a dark green, which doesn't really show up at all, but kind of adding it in here gives it the scene a little bit of a different texture. It's certainly related to the color scheme, but I don't know, even just in, you know, some lighter tones, that's really fun to add. This is a metallic green. Just adding a few little dots of that from a kind of a textural standpoint. Maybe someone that you give this to kind of holds it up and tilts it a little bit, and you know, maybe that captures some of the light. And then of course, if they hold it up to the light and take it into a dark room, it'll glow a little bit more. I can see that when I hold this up to the light and charge up those little things, it does glow a little bit, but it quickly loses its glow-in-the-dark capabilities, but it only needs to glow a little bit. It would probably really glow under a black light, though, or something of that sort. So anyways, okay, fun stuff. Thanks for watching. A lot more experimentation to follow. I can see using these pens and media here. I want to do some much more kind of explosive applications with these pens right here. Maybe the next scene I'll do is like a a sky and a Milky Way with a million stars out there, but we can kind of splatter paint it with some of the glow paint, as well as maybe some of the bleed-proof white, but we can have some of that glow paint interspersed in there, so I'll have to see how that kind of applies in that kind of flicker painting, splatter painting technique, but fun stuff here. I love experimenting with new media. I don't always get a lot of new media to play around with, but kind of am going through one of those periods right now where I'm really looking around and seeing what can be purchased and applied with effectiveness, so a lot of playtime ahead. So thanks again for watching. If you have any questions, drop me a note in the comment section below.